In the near future, Earth is suffering from a global energy crisis. Humanity builds the Cloverfield station to test and launch the Shepard particle accelerator into space. If the mission succeeds, it will provide an unlimited supply of energy for the entire planet, potentially preventing wars over resources. Ava Hamilton receives an invitation to join the crew and head into orbit for 6 months, although she is very reluctant to leave her husband. But Michael convinces her to accept, reminding her that even the mission commander, who is aware of their family issues, insists on her participation, meaning she is truly important to the mission. Besides, she is extremely talented, and if she goes and does her job, both Earth and their family might have a chance to survive. The Shepard team travels into orbit and begins the experiments. However, the initial tests bring no success, and the crew ends up spending 2 years on the station, continuing their trials. Ava contacts Michael every day, and her husband tells her about the worsening situation on Earth. Oil wars are escalating, energy sources are nearly depleted, and as a result, hunger, disease, and social collapse are spreading. Ava shares her concerns too. Only enough fuel remains for 3 more attempts, and if they fail, the mission will be deemed a total failure. Michael tries to encourage her, but the connection is lost. Ava then plays a video of her children playing and cries in front of the screen. Later, she heads to the bridge where the rest of the crew is resting. Suddenly, the mechanic Volkov starts talking about how, despite doing his job honestly, the accelerator still doesn't work. And in his opinion, it's the German, Schmidt, who's to blame. The news more and more frequently speaks of Germany preparing for war. Every day, more Russians are starving, and Schmidt is in no hurry. Hearing these accusations, Schmidt lunges at Volkov. The others try to calm the fight down and remind everyone of the importance of their work. For a while, this works. Sometime later, the crew prepares for the next Shepard launch. Scientists warn them that if the attempt fails, it could cause parallel realities to become permeable. As a result, a universe of monsters or demons might seep into the human world, or time itself could become unstable, leading to a global catastrophe. As he listens, Volkov calibrates the gyroscope, while Monk says a strange kind of prayer, asking for the strength to save humanity and prevent war between nations. The Shepard is launched. A countdown begins, and it works. A massive surge of energy flows from the accelerator, but suddenly everything stops. The ship begins to shake, explosions sound from outside the walls, the crew is tossed around, and then a fire alarm goes off on the lower deck. However, the fire suppression system fails, and the crew switches on the ventilation. When the emergency symptoms subside, the crew begins analyzing the damage. Later, as they begin repairs, the team notices numerous anomalies. There's no communication with Earth, the electrical system has died, and the internal temperature is rising by the minute. And then Ava announces something else. Earth has vanished from view. At first, no one believes her. Some suggest that they may have been flipped or thrown to the far end of the galaxy. The crew scatters throughout the ship, hoping to see Earth through the windows, while Ava tries to reach her husband. But it's all in vain. There's no planet, and no signals are getting through. Heated arguments break out, with everyone blaming everyone else. It even gets to the point where the astronauts decide that their actions may have destroyed the entire Earth. Eventually, the captain gathers the crew around the table and proposes they stop fighting and focus on the task at hand, because if they don't survive, they'll never learn the truth. He assigns roles when Volkov reports that the orientation system changed after Shepard rebooted. That means the problem might be in the gyroscope, but when Ava approaches the device, it turns out the gyroscope has simply vanished, making it impossible to determine the ship's coordinates. At that moment, a crew member feels something strange, like the skin on his face is crawling. He asks Ava to look at him, when suddenly a terrifying scream echoes from the corridor, and the two rush toward the sound. The crew gathers there as well. They search the rooms, confused by the bizarre noise. Finally, Tam points to a wall from which the scream seems to originate. She suggests removing the paneling, but this immediately sparks an argument. It could be dangerous. Despite the risks, the engineers remove the panel, and to the astonishment of the crew, they discover a woman seemingly fused with the wires and life support pipes of the ship. No one knows what to do. If they cut the wires, they might damage the life support system. And no one knows this woman, yet she suddenly addresses Ava by her last name. She keeps repeating that she doesn't know what's happening to her and pleads for help. The crew cuts her free from the wires and carries her to the medical bay. When they cut open her clothes, the astronauts are horrified. Wires are running through her body, causing her intense pain. She is sedated with a strong injection. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael hears explosions outside. Checking social media, he reads posts suggesting the end of the world has begun. Many people write that they need to flee the city. Michael calls his hospital. He knows he's needed there, but no one answers. Back on the station, the crew continues arguing about the strange incident with the woman, possible ways to save the ship, and how to find Earth. One thing is clear, it's all a consequence of the Shepherd. First and foremost, the crew must proceed with repairs. The injured woman is connected to a cellular regeneration accelerator, while the others return to their workstations. No one notices that the figurines in the arcade machine suddenly start spinning wildly on their own. Meanwhile, in the lab, Mundy discovers that the worms have vanished from their sealed aquariums. At the same time, a tense argument erupts between Tam and Schmidt, even though the two are romantically involved. Elsewhere, Volkov once again feels movement beneath his skin, and moments later, his eye begins behaving erratically, rotating wildly in its socket. He begins talking to someone inside himself, at first arguing, then agreeing. Then he walks to the 3D printer and prints a gun. With the weapon in hand, Volkov heads to the bridge and points it at Schmidt, accusing him of working for German intelligence. Tam and Schmidt try to talk him down, unable to understand what's come over him, but Volkov insists the German was ordered to sabotage the Shepherd launch. Suddenly, Schmidt collapses and begins convulsing. The crew gathers, alarmed by what's happening. Volkov then vomits out the missing worms from the lab and dies. The astronauts are still in shock, and no one notices that the woman they found in the wires appears in an old photo of the previous crew, and just then she regains consciousness. The woman says her name is Mina, and the last thing she remembers is going to help Mundy. She says she's been on the station for 2 years with the same crew, except Tam. Ava insists Tam built the Shepherd, and without her, the process would have been impossible. But Mina claims it was she who created it. Her crew has been trying to activate the accelerator for 2 years without success. She also says Ava is her best friend and stayed on Earth. And most importantly, no one should trust Schmidt, who sabotaged the experiment to help Germany win against Russia. Enraged, the commander storms into Schmidt's workspace, beats the German, and locks him in a compartment, declaring he has decoded messages that fully prove his guilt. Meanwhile, on Earth, catastrophic events are unfolding. Something is destroying everything in its path, killing thousands. Michael drives toward his hospital, only to learn that communication with the station has been lost. Then he sees burning ruins, stops the car, and steps outside, only to witness a massive shadow of an unknown monster looming in the smoke. Then he rescues a girl trapped in the rubble. Meanwhile, on the ship, Mundy is repairing a wall panel when suddenly his arm gets sucked into the wall, and then it's simply torn off. Shocked, the crew rushes him to the medical bay, where Mundy calmly moves the stump, feeling no physical pain. The crew realizes they're living under some new set of rules, but what are they? At that moment, the doors to the compartment where Schmidt is locked suddenly open, and he sees Mundy's severed hand moving on its own. He contacts the crew and asks them to gather on the main deck. The crew arrives and manages to trap the rogue hand under an aquarium. Schmidt proposes a theory. 2 universes have collided at a single point, merging into one another and fighting for dominance, creating chaos. Mundy then notices the hand, which seems to want to write something. Given a pen, the hand writes a message suggesting they should open up Volkov's body. The astronauts head to the med bay. Tam performs the operation, and inside Volkov, they discover the missing gyroscope. With it, they're able to determine their coordinates. Somehow the ship has ended up in another part of the solar system, but now they know where to go. Ava immediately receives transmissions from Earth. Unfortunately, the news is grim. A global war has been raging for 14 months, and the Cloverfield station is presumed lost, believed to have crashed into the ocean. The crew realizes that the activation of the accelerator truly did cause an overlap of 2 dimensions, and that they are now in an alternate reality. To return home, they must repair and relaunch the Shepherd. Quantum entanglement will work in reverse and pull them back into their own dimension. Some argue that landing here would be safer, but Schmidt proves that doing so won't save their original reality. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael is driving the rescued girl to a hospital, only to receive word that the clinic has been destroyed. He's told to find a safer place. Michael contacts a friend with a shelter, drives there, and administers medical help to the girl. Back on the station, Mina thanks Monk for his professionalism and shares her theory about the accident. She reminds them that escaping her reality will trap her in theirs. Tam, meanwhile, suggests inspecting the ventilation system, since it activated just as everything started breaking down. She enters the compartment and finds a water leak. Schmidt is relieved that the malfunction has been identified, but Tam becomes trapped in an airlock that rapidly fills with water. She manages to send out a distress signal, and the crew rushes to her aid. But the doors are jammed, and no matter how hard they try, they can't open them. Instead, the external hatch gives way under water pressure. The compartment depressurizes, and Tam instantly freezes in the water that turns to ice. The crew is in shock. With the loss of Shepherd's creator, their chance of returning home is gone, but then Ava remembers Mina. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael receives confirmation that the station has truly vanished. He asks authorities to help locate the girl's parents when suddenly a terrifying scream erupts outside. Back on the station, Mina agrees to repair the Shepherd in exchange for a shuttle and schematics to return home. Ava brings her some clothes, and Mina shares that her family is alive in her dimension. On Ava's Earth, her children died in a fire caused by a fuel cell she installed. Mina plays a message from Ava 2's family, where Ava 2 never joined the mission because everyone was alive. Meanwhile, after calculating all options, the crew decides to temporarily shut off the oxygen supply to divert power to the accelerator. A distressed Ava tells the captain she'll do whatever it takes to bring the crew home, but she will stay behind to warn Ava 2 about the fire hazard. Later, Mundy heads to the designated compartment and begins the shutdown. Suddenly, strange magnetic activity erupts. Wires seize him, oxygen ignites, and half the station is violently ripped from the command module. The detached section clings to the main structure and begins spinning it around, increasing the risk of total destruction. The crew realizes they must jettison the ring to save the accelerator. The commander, Ava, and Monk head outside. With great difficulty, they manage to reach the partially detached section of the station. There, the captain realizes the necessary operation must be done manually. He sends his friends back, then yanks the release valve and vanishes into space along with the debris. On Earth, Michael is informed that the girl's parents have been found. He records a message for his wife, asking her to give their relationship another chance. Back on the station, Ava assumes command and gives the order to launch the Shepherd. She hands the ignition key to Monk and then heads for the escape pod, accompanied by Mina. But suddenly, Mina knocks Ava out, grabs a pistol, and heads to the bridge. The truth is, Mina wants to keep the station running, replacing the one in her world that fell into the ocean and save her Earth. She makes the decision to seize the station. She kills Monk and takes the launch keys. Ava regains consciousness and chases after her, just as Mina wounds Schmidt. Seeing Ava, Mina reminds her of the choice: kill 3 people here to save 8 million in her world. How could anyone do otherwise? She raises the pistol, but Schmidt intervenes, and the keys end up in Ava's hands. Ava flees, and Mina shoots Schmidt again, then gives chase. She knows Ava has nowhere to hide on what's left of the station and plays a recording of Ava's children to lure her out. Struggling with the temptation to remain in a world where her children are alive, Ava ultimately decides to return to her own reality. She defeats Mina by ejecting her through a shattered viewport into space. Then she records a message for her alternate self and attaches the Shepherd schematics before sending them to Earth 2. Together with Schmidt, Ava launches the accelerator and returns to her original dimension. They establish contact with Earth, reporting that the accelerator is stable. They descend in a return capsule, still unaware of how much reality on Earth has changed. Michael is told the station has been found and that Ava is coming home. He screams in despair, she must not come back here. As he tries to stop the landing, Ava and Schmidt's descent capsule breaks through the clouds, and a towering monster lifts its massive head and lets out a hellish roar. The Cloverfield Paradox is the 3rd film in the franchise about the collision of worlds, continuing the story of humanity's struggle against threats from parallel dimensions.